I've found more than I bargained for here. There's a story here, I know it, and I intend to find it. 5694 Morgan Place is a house of secrets, and these secrets might have been the death of someone, or several someones. It was the morning after my dream, and I was interested in finding more of this story. It was early, the sun not even up yet, but I was raring to go. I decided to go back to the room I'd seen the paint splatters in, assuming there must be a story there. Margarite Hargrave, the artist, would have doubtlessly had quite a story in her brother's little play. First, however, I made myself eat some breakfast. If I've learned anything, it's that you can't remodel a house on an empty stomach. The stove was gas, and it lit fairly easily. I soon had eggs, bacon, and sausage cooking in the pan, toast in a separate pan, they didn't have a toaster, and coffee, of course. I don't think I really tasted any of it, except the coffee, which burned my mouth, but I made myself eat. A full stomach meant I wouldn't have to stop later to fuel up again. The sun was up by the time I got the dishes in the sink, and I went to get ready for the day. I came upstairs 30 minutes later in my painter's overalls and tool belt, ready to get cracking. I should have brought paint, but I was really hoping not to need any. If there was more story beneath the wallpaper in Margarite's room, then I would leave it for the guests to puzzle over. All in all, I was hoping that the brother would have continued his little tale. Murder mystery houses make the best bed and breakfasts, and usually have the best rates, too. Margarite's room was the first one off the stairwell to the left. I found the room much as I had before. The carpet in here had been a bad choice. The thick shag carpet in here was caked with paint. Red, yellow, blue, green, so many colors trapped within the thirsty fibers of that floor. It would have to come up, but first, the few bits of furniture would need to go. Thankfully, Margarite hadn't kept much in here, though I was surprised to see none of her art on the wall. For an artist, she certainly didn't seem to enjoy showing it. I opened the window and unceremoniously tossed out the end table, the lamp, and the few clothes in the closet, and a small desk that I had to break up first. It all fell noisily into the garden down below, and I figured I might make a bonfire out of it later. A part of me wanted to take down the wallpaper right then and there, but I made myself take the carpet up first. It was heavier than I had thought it would be, and I had to cut it to get it out the window. The bottom was as colorful as the top, but some of the stains I saw were decidedly thick. I could honestly believe that some of it was blood, and the flooring beneath was saturated in more than a few spots. It didn't seem to have damaged the wood, though, which was one less thing I would need to fix. With the work done, it was time to get to the main event. The wallpaper came off like it had only been waiting for the opportunity. I felt my heart rate rise as I started seeing words. The same long script as the entryway. He must have used one of the ladders from the library, the kind that rolled along the wall, because there was no way someone could have circled the wall like that without some kind of strange rolling ladder. It wound around and around the wall, stretching on until the climax near the baseboards. I smiled as I took it all in, feeling like Indiana Jones uncovering something undiscovered. I moved around the room, glancing at the strange script, and as I did, it was like a movie began to play in my head. I could see the story of Margarite, from birth to death, and the man narrating it did not sound altogether sane. The longer I listened, the more I wondered how sane I was. This is the final resting place of Margarite Hargrave. Margarite was the second of the Hargrave children, beaten by Jonathan Jr. by only a year. Melissa Hargrave was blessed indeed, and Margarite was not one to hide in her sibling's shadow. Margarite began painting at the age of 2, though her mother would tell you it was sooner. She would make pictures with her cereal on the lid of her high chair, Melissa would say. She would create art with her milk sometimes, leaving messes for her mother to find later. Even in her messes, though, there was art. The scattering of her toys, the arrangement of her dirty clothes, the spilling of her food from the plate during a tantrum. It was all art. Margarite, however, would not complete her first piece until she was 2. It was a drawing of the family home, the line work like something from a much older child. Her teacher was speechless, telling Mrs. Hargrave that she had never seen a child do something like this. Mrs. Hargrave thanked her, and that picture hung in the den for the majority of my life, right up until I burned it in the fire with everything else my siblings ever valued. As she grew, Margarite improved. She was a favorite in the art contests her private school would throw, the winner of many local and abroad art contests, and that was when someone noticed her. Margarite was 12 when the man from Brathers discovered her. Mr. Thomas, with his fedora and his constant cloud of cigarette smoke, brought her to his studio and displayed everything she ever drew or made. And Margarite had begun to do more than pictures by then. Marble, clay, granite, charcoal, oil paints, whatever medium she chose, Margarite could not fail. She told us years later, after Mr. Thomas died, that more had been done than art in that studio. But so what? Is art not to suffer? Must the artist not paint with the brush of trauma from time to time? No one could claim it would be easy, but Margarite made it all look so easy. Mr. Thomas died when she was 19. A stroke, they say, but Margarite hardly needed him by then. She bought his gallery and displayed her own work, selling a great deal of it and becoming rather wealthy from the endeavor. She traveled, she created, but she always came back to Hargrave House for a little recharge. She always said this was where she did her best work, and this was where she made her masterpiece, her final stroke. Margarite was not difficult to kill. I only needed to have the right medium. Persephone gave me that element, though I doubt she knew it until it was too late. The plant had a long name that I could not hope to pronounce, but she told me it was a strain of her own creation. It was a natural bug repellent, something that would not harm the plants, but would hurt people in large doses. It would cause a numbing effect if used in small doses, but overexposure could cause respiratory arrest and death. Margarite had been working on something in her room for days, a series of finger painting experiments that would prove that even a toddler's medium could be art. It was nothing to mix the extract of the plant with her paint, and after working so diligently, the piece became her final gift to the art world. What Persephone forgot to mention was the bleeding. Overexposure did not cause the lungs to stop. It caused them to fill with blood. It caused a bleeding inside the body. It caused the rupturing of blood vessels in the eyes, the bleeding from orifices, and a slow and inevitable death. I found her on the floor of her room, her final masterpiece, spotted with her own dying efforts. I shuddered as I finished, the realization that some of those not paint stains were likely from the final efforts of Margarite Hargrave. How long had she lain here in her own blood? Who else had died when they took away the evidence for inspection? It appeared that whatever was at work here had driven Carter Hargrave quite mad. I could understand. The mystery was driving me a little crazy, too. As I read over the last of it, I became aware that it was nearly 2 in the afternoon. It had taken me less time to clean out the room than it had to read all of that, circling like a bath toy in danger of going down the drain. It hadn't been that long a tale. There was no way I'd been standing here for 4 hours reading it. But I had. I decided to go have some long overdue lunch before perusing more renovations. I figured I probably needed a little break anyway, after what I had just read. Over a lunch of tomato soup and a ham sandwich, I Googled Marguerite Hargrave, just to make sure this wasn't some kind of weird book Carter was writing on the walls. Crazy people propagate weird stories like this sometimes, with fake journals or weird VHS tapes. And it wouldn't be the first time that some rube had found a journal in the wall or a weird recording on a cassette tape and taken it as gospel. The Google search came back with some stories connected to the house, a squib about her birth in 1963, and a whole lot of art. Marguerite Hargrave had indeed been a talented artist, and a lot of her work was still in museums and private galleries. I didn't see anything about her death, though there was some kind of mystery surrounding her disappearance. The mystery of Hargrave House was something that had taken the area by storm at the time, and was still sometimes speculated about in certain chat rooms and forums. I wondered if any of her old artwork was stashed around here somewhere, especially after seeing the price tag on some of them. It was a real toss-up on whether I'd want to sell them or keep them to add to the ambience of the place. I'd have to keep my eyes peeled, I supposed. I had meant to go upstairs and do some more renovating, but instead, I took my tablet up to Marguerite's old room and transcribed Carter's story there. I was a little surprised to see that I'd already written down the one in the entryway, but not overly so. After all, it had been the same voice from my dreams that had suggested I come up here and write it down. Something wants this story told, and I seem to be the one to tell it. Who else will, right? I'm the only one here, so if not me, then who? It was 3 o'clock when I started, and I remember thinking that it wouldn't take that long. It was barely 2 pages after all, and it wasn't as if I was transcribing a novel. I started writing, the story again playing out before me like some movie on a reel, and as I wrote the last of it, I was sitting in a dark, barren room as night hung around me. My watch says it's 9 o'clock, but that's impossible. How did I lose 6 hours? I'm going to bed. This place is strange, but I found myself as invested in the mystery as much as the prospect of turning it into a bed and breakfast. I hope my dreams are quieter tonight. I'm almost afraid to close my eyes and see that otherworldly being again. Afraid, but strangely fascinated as well. You're still here. Thanks so much for joining us for tonight's spooky tale. If you'd like a little bit more spooky in your life, why not click on one of the videos that appears at the end of our story, or maybe head on over to one of our playlists where you can get your fill of spooky content. If you like your spooky a little more tactile, I've got a new book that's come out. If you'd like your own copy, there's a link below in the description where you can get your own copy of my spooky book. If you like what you see here on the channel and think you might like to support in a more monetized way, then why not come over to Patreon or become a member on YouTube? Speaking of, let's go ahead and thank our members now. Thanks to Civ Garstad, Unicorn Hollow, and Army Dude for being our spooky ghost contributors. Thanks to Janet, Lee Kendall, Saikat, Ronda J, Sue Casper, and Valinator for being our spooky skeleton contributors. And thanks to Oh Snap, Hi Stacy, Winter, Xaronan, Stephanie Carrington, Tyler Parker, Cinnamon Fox, Grim Reaper, TomBoiTopUwU, and Queen Sheebah for being our ghostly reader tier contributors. And a big thanks to Scott Donahue for being our ghostly writer tier contributor. Thanks everyone, we just couldn't do the show without you. If you'd like to support the channel, then come on down to Patreon, or become a member on YouTube. Spooky Skeleton tier contributors, that's our $5 tier, get their spooky 12 hours early, at 8:30 a.m., as opposed to 8:30 p.m., my time, of course. And while Ghostly Reading is only a tier that's available on Patreon, you get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one, on your doorstep in, hopefully, a timely manner. If you'd like a book, we have many on Amazon. I've got links below if you'd like to follow those. Should get you to my page so you can buy any one of my 8 books I believe we're up to now. I'm sure they'd look really nice on your shelf, and I'll sign them for you if you can find me out in the wild. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.